Good morning, everyone. Hope you are all well. And it's lovely to see you joining us on this bank holiday, or as I like to call it, a bank holy day, an opportunity to grow and sanctify time. So here we go. So today's learning is dedicated in memory of Leah Bas Feivel, Tzivia Bas Mordechai, Avram ben David Slavin, Shlom ben Yisroel Morris, Eliezer ben Shmuel Teret, Eliezer Shalom ben Avram Shmuel Berech, Tzipora Feigle Bas Reuven Baruch, Shalom ben Elia Lee, Bena Bas Feivel, Shlomo Shoshana Bas Yaakov Shmuel, Sarah Malka Bas Binyamin, which their respective families long life. So let's make a start on the Maimonides. So one of the points that Maimonides makes, we're in the second chapter, is that even though a person finds himself that he has done teshuva in the past, he has repented, he has reformed himself, nevertheless, on the past sins that he has done, let's say last year, even if he did sincere, genuine repentance, atonement, nevertheless, he has to ask for forgiveness year after year. And the question is, why? Right? That was in the past. Why do I have to continually ask for forgiveness? Why do I have to say, ask for forgiveness? The second Yom Kippur finishes, I say in the Amidah, Slach lanu avinu ki chatanu, I ask God for forgiveness when the slate has just been wiped clean. And there are two reasons. The first, we find with, there was an alcoholic who was in a rehab center, and he stood up and he said, I am an alcoholic. And somebody asked of him and they said, I don't get it. I know that you've been coming here for 35 years, right? So, do you still have a drinking issue? Do you still have a problem? He says, no, I haven't drunk. I haven't touched a drop of alcohol for 35 years, right? But I know that the second that I no longer say that I am an alcoholic, that I don't have that conscious awareness, then I know that I could start drinking again. So therefore, a person has to always see themselves, always be on guard that they are in a situation where, yes, this is what I have done in the past. Yes, this is what I have to be aware of. We have to be wary and be cautious to make sure that we don't re-offend, we don't make the same mistakes again year after year. The second reason why we would repeat a confession, despite the fact that we were forgiven in previous years, is as follows. If you were to imagine that the Baal Shem Tov, and I think others say that when a person asks for forgiveness, we have a certain sensitivity, awareness as to the wrongdoing, as to the repercussions and the damage that we have caused. Now imagine that you damaged some property of the king. So you would, for example, ask for forgiveness, right? And he may grant it. But imagine that you stood in front of the King of Kings and you had a greater awareness of his grandeur, of the majesty of the king. Now you have a deeper appreciation of the harm that you caused and how inappropriate it was for you to have acted in the way you did. And therefore, for that second reason as well, the more that we come close to God during the 10 days of repentance, the greater awareness we have of, oh my gosh, this is so not becoming of me. I should have been a better person. And I, in terms of my spiritual growth and meteoric rise, I could have and should have been more. So now the Rambam goes on, we're in the end of the second chapter, and he makes 2 points. He speaks about the offender and he speaks about the victim. And he says that there is a dual responsibility. On the one hand, the person who has caused the harm, right, has to ask for forgiveness, right? He says here, even if, for example, let's say you cause damage, you may have damaged somebody's, property or their car or their, whatever it is, their property. You cause them some damage and you made restitution. Nonetheless, despite the fact that you have made restitution, nonetheless, you would still have to appease them and ensure that there is no lingering, harboring feelings of resentment. That's point number 1. And even if the only damage that you caused was with the spoken word, something that you said in jest or behind their backs you caused some type of offense in the way that you spoke about another person, some words that were of detriment. So you need to appease them and try to undo the harm and ask them for a forgiveness. What happens if you ask for forgiveness? You're sincere, you're full of contrition, and then all of a sudden the other person says, you know what, I don't want to forgive you. Get out of here. Go away. I don't want to know. What do you do then? You have genuinely, sincerely asked for forgiveness. You recognize your wrongdoing, that you've transgressed, that you've made a mistake, that you caused harm to your fellow Jew. Now what do? They don't want to accept your forgiveness. Says Maimonides that you have to ask not just once. So if he doesn't, you ask individually for forgiveness and he doesn't accept it or she doesn't accept it, you have to ask 3 times. Yeah, and he suggests that you bring groups of 3 people. If it's a serious matter, you would send a delegation to ask on your behalf. He may not be willing to look at you, to speak to you, so you send a delegation and are able to intercede on your behalf. And if he pushes back on them, then you would do it again. And if on 3 occasions he rejects the efforts to ask for forgiveness and to make peace, then if he doesn't want to after the 3rd time, then you do not have to ask forgiveness anymore, but he is considered a sinner. The person who doesn't grant a person forgiveness when they have asked on 3 occasions, then the person who refuses to grant another person forgiveness, they become the sinner, because that person, everyone is entitled to second chances. And our sages, in fact, tell us that the way, Kamayim Ponim El Ponim, King Solomon said, the way that we treat other people, if you stand in front of water, you see your reflection. The way that we behave to others, right, is the way the Almighty behaves to us. In other words, if we show kindness and compassion and consideration, and we are quick to forgive, then God, in turn, seeing that we are acting as he does, we are slow to anger and quick to forgive, then he will similarly be forgiving of what we have done wrong. So therefore, in terms of our fellow human being, we have to sit down and we have to have those conversations, but afterwards then we have to grant forgiveness. And if we don't grant forgiveness, the Rambam's already said that we are the ones that are wrong. A person shouldn't be cruel. I want to hold a grudge against another person. I'm not going to forgive them. I'm going to hold on to this roigus, to this veribel for the next 20 years. And we don't even remember what it's about. I don't even know what it is. But I know there's something. That's not the Jewish approach. I know many people are thinking, well, it seems to be in our genes, in our family for many generations, but that's not the way it should be. A person, it doesn't matter what they've done, you have to find it in your heart to forgive and to forget, okay, and to be able to move on, okay. It doesn't help by harboring those feelings, those recriminations, those feelings of anger and pain towards another person. Of course, you can only ask forgiveness for things that somebody has done to you. And there is, of course, the case of Simon Wiesenthal, where this will conclude. Simon Wiesenthal was called in. We mentioned this on Yom Kippur a few years ago. He was in a concentration camp, and there was a Nazi who was in a hospital, and he was asked, the Nazi was asked, he's dying, and he wanted to gain forgiveness for the terrible atrocities and that he had caused, all the Jews that he had murdered. So he wanted a Jew to come and to ask for forgiveness on behalf of all of those that he'd murdered. So he calls in Simon Wiesenthal, and he says to him, he's absolutely traumatized. He doesn't feel that he wants to die in peace, and he doesn't have peace because he keeps turning over in his mind, and conjures up these images that he has of this synagogue building that was on that they set, the Nazis poured petrol all over it, they set it on fire, and as the building was on fire with the people trapped inside, then the Jews started to jump, and the soldiers were told to shoot all of those that tried to escape, that tried to jump. And he remembers shooting. There was a child that was thrown at the window, and he remembers shooting. And he says to Simon Wiesenthal, I feel terrible, and I can't live with myself. Please, I'm a dying man now. Let me go in peace. I want forgiveness. Will you grant me forgiveness on behalf of all of those that I caused harm? And Simon Wiesenthal looked at him and just walked away. And then he wrote a whole book, The Sunflower, and it's a discussion about some of the great thinkers about whether he was right or wrong. But from a Jewish perspective, right, I can only ask you for forgiveness, right, if it's a matter between you and me, right? If I harmed you, you can forgive me. But if it is that I didn't harm you, I harmed a third party, then you are not in a position to grant me forgiveness for something that doesn't concern us. It's about a third party. And then, therefore, Simon Wiesenthal felt, how can we possibly? It's not in our power to grant a Nazi forgiveness if it wasn't between me and that person. And so therefore, it's worth bearing in mind. We have it in our hands, in our power. It's in our hands to decide how we are going to interact, whether we are going to forgive others, and whether we are going to ask for forgiveness from others, right? And whilst we have the capability, and before we approach Rosh Hashanah, it is the ideal opportunity to wipe the slate clean, not just in between us and God, but between us and our fellow human being. It doesn't matter how long, right? It could just be that you just go up to them and say, listen, there's a lot of waters passed under the bridge. I don't know if you want to go through it or not, but I just wanted to ask for forgiveness, I hope you'll forgive me for whatever's gone before. Let's put the past behind us, right? If the person wants to open up and to discuss it, that's one thing, but very often they don't, and they're just happy. They know, we know what happened, and therefore they just want to, they're happy that you've asked for forgiveness, and that's it. So with that in mind, that sets us up very nicely for the third chapter that we'll begin tomorrow, and hopefully, please God, we look forward to finishing all the chapters of Hilchos Teshuva. We are going to go at a quicker pace so that we can finish everything by Yom Kippur. So now we continue with Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even when I walk in the valley of darkness, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You set a table before me in the presence of my adversaries. You anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord for the length of days. Memorial prayer. Confession. Es nishmos lev bas Bible to bas Mordechai Avram ben David Slavin Shlom ben Yisrael Morris Eliezer ben Shmuel Ted Eliezer Shalom ben Avram Shmuel Bers Tipper Fegel bas Ruben Bach Shalom ben Eli Lee ben bas Bible from Moshe bas Yaakov Shmuel Sarah Malka bas ben Yomin Shal Cholil Amam Began Aiden Temnu Chasam Lachim Balarachamim Yasrim B'Tiskan Apab Yolomim B'Yisobas Achayis Nishmas Amadena Nachlasam V'Yanuchu B'Shlom Mishkavam V'Nomar Amen. Lastly, before Shlema prayer, but I just want to ask a little question of each and every one of you. And good morning. Whilst we are here on a bank holiday, whilst those that have had the courtesy to say good morning to me, it'd be quite rude of me not to make mention, to wish good morning to Eitan, to Peter, to Neil, to Paul, to Andrea, to David, to Rachel, to Mervyn, to Estelle, to Jackie, to Harry, to Richard, to Michael. It's so beautiful and so special to have so many dear friends learning together. And Michelle came in as well. So special to have you all together learning through. I want to ask you a question, okay? And I'm not going to ask anyone specific, but do we think as a group there are things that are beyond the pale, right? We spoke about forgiveness, but there are things. I'll give an example. Somebody murders, God forbid, a family member. Would we entertain the possibility that we have to grant that other person forgiveness? A case of abuse, right? Would we ever expect an abuser to have to be granted forgiveness, right? And there are many other things that we're not going to go into at this time in the morning. So my question to you is, what things do where do we draw the line about where it is? According to Maimonides, generally speaking, we should try to find it in our hearts to ask for forgiveness. I want you to think about today, where do you draw the line? Where is it that, beyond this point, there is no return, right? I want that to leave you with that question. And with this, we'll conclude, and we'll just say the Refuah Shalema prayer. And there are people that are very unwell in our own community. Managed to get into one of the hospitals yesterday to visit one of them, and we'll have them in mind as we say the Refuah Shalema prayer today. Misha Berach Abaseinu Avraham Yisrael Yaakov Moshe Aaron David Shlomo v'Yivarach Ra Pesach Cholim. Bavo Shalom Mispalim Bavo Ram Bezchazar Bezchazar Kadosh Baruch Hu Yimale Rachim Aleihem Lachem Olav L'Zam Yishlach Lem Refuah Shalema Neshamaim L'Chol Avraham Besoch Shachol Yisrael Refuah Saneh Refuah Saguf Hashtag B'Gazman Karibin Amar Amen. Michael says we are not God. You're right, Michael, we are not God. But things that have happened between us and our fellow human being that are repairable, then we can ask for forgiveness. And I, just my humble opinion, we'll see how the Maimonides discusses it and dissects it in future. But I think where there is permanent damage, then I don't think that we are expected to forgive necessarily. Where it is that there is possible to put things right, you haven't ruined that person's life, right? Then I think that could be the dividing line where we are able to ask and find it in our hearts to ask for forgiveness. Lastly, before we conclude, David Goldring has just said good morning, and I would like to wish David on behalf of all the group, he's a regular, wish you long life, David. I know you're sitting Shiva in Leicester. Wish you and all the family long life, and please God, only simchas. Everyone keep safe, keep well on this bank holiday, and I hope you have a great day, and look forward, please God, to seeing you tomorrow at 7:30 Mincha Marav tonight, and have a look at the new poster that we've designed as I go off. Take care.